Hello, YouTube channel, subscribers, new viewers, whoever. Tell you straight off, this contains some unpleasant scenes. So, and it's not the cheeriest video you're ever going to hear in your life. I feel it needed to be made though in any case. So, but please, if you don't want to see, I'm going to show you some of the effects of my neurological disease, the ravages on my body, and then talk to you about train strikes, Christmas, England. I hope to have a picture of myself behind me from my army days, but it's out of reach there. I'm too weak to do it. Okay. If you're a regular viewer, you know I'm Paul Murphy. And if you're not a regular viewer, then you now know I'm Paul Murphy. Where to start? In a nutshell, about 5 years ago I started getting ill. 2 and a bit years ago I started contacting GPs about how ill I was. I was exercising, and I'd always weightlifted and I'd always jogged every day. But what was happening was when I was weightlifting, I'd gone from 100 sit-ups a day to, I couldn't do 3 or 4, and the more I worked out with the weights, the muscles seemed to be burning off instead of going on. Strange. About 2 years ago, instead of getting up at 4 o'clock every morning, my brain was sending signals out, but the legs wouldn't respond, I just couldn't get up. It had been so slow, it had been inexorable. The descriptive I always use is, because you don't notice it, it had been like treacle sliding down a frozen mirror, and it had just gone so slow, and you only noticed at that point in 6 months increments, and you'd be thinking, well, 6 months ago I could do this, and I was jogging, and now I'm sort of pulling up and I'm speed walking the last bit. And then 6 months later you think, well, I was speed walking for 3 miles and now I'm just walking 2 miles. Trouble getting oxygen in, can't play the saxophone anymore. Something's going wrong with my fingers. When I play the guitar I can't make desuspend anymore. What the hell's going on with my little finger? I was 58 at the time, so you put a lot of stuff down to old age. And then this huge gut started appearing on me. And how can I get a huge gut? But I wasn't weighing anymore. In fact, I was weighing less. I don't drink, I don't smoke, vegetarian 45 years. I'd never put on weight in my life. I started suffering blackouts, presumably from, anyway, I need to shorten this down. And it started speeding up and my body started wasting away. On the 29th of December 2020 I was in Neuro Hospital after a blackout. There had all been jokes in the waiting room while I was going in, and after 2 hours they took some blood and the doctor came out and he said, I'm afraid there's some bad news and your GP will tell you. And I said, well, tell me. No, I'm sick. No, he said, it'll be for your GP. I said, I've been waiting to get an appointment with my GP for 6 months. He's not going to tell me. He refused to tell me. To this day they haven't told me. Blackouts continued. I was contacted. I was told they wanted to send me to a neurology clinic in Bristol for investigations. That didn't sound too good. It got preempted. I was in a car with a friend. I suddenly started suffering some chest pains. My family has a history of heart disease, which is why I'd always exercised a bit off. And I'd had an angiogram 6 weeks beforehand. And the cholesterol had really built up in there. I was on the wrong dose of statins by a long way. Not enough to fight it off. And of course I wasn't exercising anymore at that point. In the Musgrove Hospital in Yeovil, got seen by a neurologist. I'll upload the conversation later. In 8 minutes he said he's lost a little bit of muscle on his lower left leg. Probably it'll be a functional neurological disorder caused by his divorce and the loss of his children. which had taken place 6 months beforehand, 8 months beforehand at that point. I expect him to recover. That neurologist has been requested to reassess me by 7 doctors to my knowledge, and possibly even more, but to my knowledge 7 different doctors. Not one doctor 7 times, 7 different doctors in hospitals. He's refused. I'm now approaching that. There's nothing left in my body. And every time I get rushed into hospital, they keep going back to this thing, and they keep saying, well, it's a function. And I say, how can it be functional logical? Because the video evidence, because I was in rehearsals for a comeback, concert performance comeback, and so it was all being videoed, you know, all the rehearsals were being videoed, and then lockdown came in, and I was looking at doing a stand-up routine as well. So everything was videoed just so I could see what songs worked, because I hadn't played live since my son was born. Gave everything up just to raise my son. Thank God I did. Well, what am I talking about? There is no God. Well, there is a God, but not a God that's interested in human beings. But anyway, man creates God in his own image, not vice versa. You heard it here first, folks. And I'm so sorry about this. It's very difficult to keep my eyes open. Normally I make these videos when I'm able to move around a bit, because I didn't want my children to know how seriously ill I was. And so, you know, everyone says, well, you make all these videos, yes, but you know they're they're in 10-minute increments, you know, and I sit here and I spoon sugar there myself. I didn't eat sugar in 40 years. I can see why most of the Western world's addicted to the stuff. I take painkillers, and I get the lighting right so that it doesn't show just how ill, and it doesn't show that my skin is gone yellow and everything. And but the rest of the day I just lie I have a little bed there on the sofa. I'm here from my wheelchair, by the way, in case you're wondering. Yeah, my wheelchair. This is the NHS view. There you go. It says, I don't know if you can see this or not. The spoiler alert, the wheelchair is my commode. I can't get that in. Goddamn useless fingers. So sorry. I've been waiting for the NHS to give me a wheelchair since the 15th of February 2022. It is now the 22nd of December 2022. Just so that I could wheel myself to the kitchen to get food. Because there's 2 things. It's not a case of whether you can walk or not. It's whether you can walk without blacking out. Now that my hair is falling out because of the disease, I think I showed you one of the other videos, these great big, what side is it? I think that's one of the great big dents in my head from falling down. How I've survived this long from that. Anyway, the NHS in a nutshell has not given me 1 day of treatment in this 2.5 years. They still stick by, even in the evidence room. I've been thrown out of hospitals, and I've been attacked in hospitals. These people are not heroes. And you need to just get over that, okay? When I was in hospital in October, they were openly mocking the general public. It's them. It's the same with the train, and we'll get onto those in a minute. All these polls where it says there's so much support for them, they get their own relatives from phoning up. It's their own relatives and family that were doing it. I mean, I can prove that from the train point of view. We'll come back to that later. But they were openly talking about it. They were laughing. So you were supposed to do this. This was 3 o'clock in the morning in ambulatory care in Yeovil Hospital. And they got a standby nurse in. And she was supposed to be looking after a hard to deal with patient. Something case, they called him. Wasn't me. Should have been, really. I've been too nice to them. And she was quite a funny lady, and they said, well, And he said, well, he's been asleep. She said, but you still need to take his things. And in a mock hurt voice, she said, you can't talk to me like that. I'm a hero. It says so in the newspapers. And this other nurse was walking past. And she said, well, yeah, only because we get our husbands to phone up and say we are. I gather it's always gone on. Where was I to? Anyway. And I've wasted away to nothing. And as I've made these videos, I've put on ever more clothes to try and hide from my children the fact that I've wasted away to nothing. I thought I'd show you today just what's happened. It's very difficult because of the thing, but you can see there's no neck left. So I've grown a beard, only one side of my mouth works. And you can probably see now, and it hides from my children. Right here, see? What happens with this disease? All your muscle. Now this is why that thug attacked me in Neuro Hospital in November, because he wanted to cut these off. He'd been stalking. You can see from the size of my hands the proportion against my forearms now, how much I've wasted away. So you can go on my YouTube channel and on the video that I have where it's a series of photos, and I take a photo of this November the 22nd, 2020. November the 22nd, 2021. Oh, sorry, 2020. Well, yes, 21 and then 22. So you can see, but not according to the NHS. So you see, everything is just water. You see here, all this was solid muscle. All I am now is just skin and water. You see, there's nothing left. So all I can do to keep my arms up. It's an awful thing to have to show you, but you need to know two things. One, if you get ill with a neurological disease in this country, unless you're a famous rugby player or a famous football player, you will be left to rot and die on your own. Chest muscles. All this was solid. Don't take my word for it. See. This here, everyone thinks it's gut, but it's not gut. The stomach muscles deteriorate away. That's my intestines pushing through. Legs. These legs used to jog 4 miles a day, every morning. You see, up at 4 o'clock. You see, nothing left now. What's coming. It's the sort of thing a neurologist should look at, but if you've seen the video from a couple of weeks ago, they did it over Zoom because they wouldn't see me in person. I've tried to shield it all from my children for as long as I could. My beautiful children. Twice, oh yeah, back to the NHS, so twice in the last year I've been in hospital, I've been attacked by hospital staff. Attacked. Once by a nurse. She brought me soup. I'd just been told I had motor neuron disease. They told me on the 5th I had motor neuron disease. I was in and out of a coma for 2 days, and I was in this ward on the 7th. They hadn't fed me. I'd had no fluid. Luckily I'd gone in with a rucksack and I was living off of some sweets that my children had in the bottom of the rucksack. And I had water splash bottles in there. Nothing. The nurse was later found out there were 2 drug addicts in there. One from hospital where he tried to kill someone. Anyway, notorious in this area, and she was in a relationship with one of them. You can see, I'm just saying how my shoulders have gone to nothing, you see. This is the end stage of the disease, so it doesn't really matter now. I filmed her. I had a little portable camera on me, and I filmed her attacking me. She brought me some soup, and I said, what is it? And she said, chicken. I said, I'm not eating that. And she just launched this. I've made this for you. I said, can you not talk to me like that? She said, you're just so... I mean, all the junkies who hadn't done a day's work in their life, they were eating 10-course meals and stuff, you know, and getting their morphine put into their veins every 4 hours and everything. I was living off of aspirin out of my own rucksack. And I said, but I'm a vegetarian. Well, that's all there is, she said. I said, well, could you not just come and ask me first? I said, look, I'm not having this. I said, because like I said, I'd just been told 2 days beforehand the doctor told me in A&E, she said they've done all these tests. When they don't come back for 4 hours and you can see it's not busy there, then you know something is up. You can just see from the body language. I can see it clear as daylight now. And she said, well, we're looking at progressive bulbar palsy motor neuron disease. And I was as naive as anything, you know. And I said, oh, well, what's that going to play out like? I mean, it only came as half a shock because my GP had told me on the telephone call. Well, it was a GP. My GP put a call through and I got another call. I was on the playground with my children at the time. When a doctor you've never heard of suddenly phones you out of the blue. And Mr. Murphy, yeah, you're at Western Grove Medical Centre. I said, yeah, for what it's worth, yeah. He said, well, we're looking at motor neuron disease. I said, oh, well, what happens there? He said, well, if it is motor neuron disease, we want to get you reassessed. So I'd had this assessment, but then they'd see me in person. And this is just 6 weeks after this piece of paper said, neurological and functional neurological disorder, I expect him to get better. Caused, but I mean, we knew it was garbage in any case because it said it was caused by my divorce, but we have video evidence of it starting years before then, years and years. And as for getting better, I was getting worse and worse, you know. I came out of there and I thought, well, exercise has got to be the answer, you know. Just build the muscles back up. Little did I know I was killing myself. And he said the prognosis isn't good, but like everyone else, and I can see how these idiot NHS workers get fooled by this from the expert. Now, what you need to know now is, of course, we now know that there are over 2,000 cases of misdiagnosed neurology. Now, a year after the BBC ignored our letters, their website's neurological scandal, blah, blah, blah. You don't know that half of it's sunny, BBC. Those young women that we told you about, who couldn't take his hands off of them and were refusing to be seen by him and insisted on being seen by the other. You didn't want to know about those, did you? How many other young women have been touched up? So I get angry on behalf of the other people because I feel I've let them down. But, you know, I did what I could. We contacted all the radio stations and everything about it. So anyway, this nurse attacked me in the middle of COVID. It's all on film. She pulls her face mask down. I'll do it now. And she goes right into my face like that. She goes, "You're pathetic." Lovely, caring nurses. And then a drug addict boyfriend or so-so friend or whatever got involved. Yeah, come for you. When you go to sleep tonight, I'm going to put boiling water in your face. I'm going to do it now, he said. And he said to her, can you get me a hot drink, can you? And she went to get them a hot drink, and literally, on CCTV. While I was in there, they were begging this neurologist to come re-examine me, and he refused 5 times. On the 3rd day, they said, well, we've emailed him, he said, but we can't get a response from him. He said he's been phoned and he's been emailed, and we can't get, that was his words, we can't get a response from him. I literally had to get out of bed, drape myself over a walking frame, get the elevator, get downstairs, get a taxi home. I had to flee from a hospital in fear of my life because a sanctioned by nurse attack on me was about to take place. Yeovil Hospital, I'm still waiting. Can you see over there on the computer table that? I don't know. Let me see. I don't know where I'm doing it. Let me move the viewfinder around. This is going to be... Everything I tell you is true, folks. Where are they? So there's the screen. Right, see those little white pockets there? Inside all those little white pockets there are those. The camera disc from the camera. From the spy camera. Where is the spy camera? It should be up there. Oh, there's all the cameras that I had there. That bottom one is the spy camera that recorded it all. I contacted Yeovil Police about the attack on me and threats to myself. They were going to come round and we were going to get this video on the Saturday, I believe it was the 10th of October 2021. I'm still waiting. When I called them up and complained, about 3 months later maybe, I don't know, I'd need to check my telephone for that. I got a text message back from the police officer saying, you were going to email it to me. And I said, no, I'm just saying I don't know how to do that. You were going to come out and collect it. If I couldn't email it, you were going to come out and collect it. And he responded and he said, well, the matter has been investigated fully and closed. Now, how can you investigate the matter fully if I've got the video footage of it there and you haven't come out and got it? Okay, so that's the police for you, and that's the NHS for you. 6 weeks ago I was in Yeovil, I was in a wheelchair. I should have a heart monitor fix. The guy attacked me. I complained about him previously for making a fallacious report. And I was in a wheelchair, sitting in a dressing gown in a wheelchair, and he came at me and he tried to cut these off. He'd been stalking me. After the complaint, he'd Googled me and he'd stalked me on, and he'd seen my YouTube videos. And he started off by being, you don't need these, he said. And so he knew that I was showing you all how I'm wasting away, because this is the NHS's own proof. You know, this disproves the NHS. That's their bracelet, and you can see it getting thinner on me each day as I waste away to nothing. He grabbed my arm, produced a pair of scissors, and tried to cut them off. I said, what the heck are you doing? Get off of me. You don't need these bracelets. I said, well, it's not for you to decide. I said, what the hell are you doing? I said, get off me. I'm so sorry, I've just clicked something on there because I want so much on the computer. Oh, the internet's gone there. Typical. And I've covered this in another video. I'll just do it here. I said, forget this. I said, just get me out of here. Get me an ambulance home. And he said, well, what am I going to write down on the paper? I said, just write down. I said, but Mr. Murphy was attacked by the person who was supposed to be fitting the heart monitor. I said, and curtailed the appointment in fear for his life, in fear for his personal safety. Okay, he said, moves my wheelchair out into the waiting room. And I'm thinking, Jesus, it's an asylum. And the wrong people. It was wrong clothing, you know. They're all in. They should be in shirts that tie up at the back. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, about 5 minutes, 6 minutes and 22 seconds later. You'll know in a minute why I'm being so precise. He comes out and he attacks me again. I'm not writing that down in the paperwork, he said. I said, I'm not going back in there with you. I said, just leave me, go away now. Look, he said, and I said, okay. And I said, he wouldn't go away. So I said, help, help. I started screaming for help, yelling for help. On about the 10th help, doors started opening and NHS staff started coming out. Now, so I'm there, I'm in a wheelchair, I look like this, I'm screaming for help in a waiting room. There are 7 other members of the public there observing all of this. The NHS staff come out and see what's going on. They don't want to do anything. One lady, large, rotund lady in blue, comes over, gets herself between me and this thug, forces him off of me, forces him back into his room. She then comes over to me and says, what's happened? I said, well, he's attacked me with scissors. I said, and he's just come out and launched me again. I said, just keep him away from me. I said, I'm calling 999. Don't do that. She said, don't, 999. She moves my wheelchair over to the side like I'm some piece of garbage. 5 hours later, I wait. No one came to see me in all that time. At one point, I blacked out and almost fell out of the wheelchair. A young 6-year-old girl came over and screamed in my ear to try and get me to wake up. No hospital staff came near me. This thug stayed there working all day long. He's still there now. How many, as I've said so many times, who was next? Who's he attacked next? An 80-year-old woman? A 6-year-old girl? Your brother? Your father? Your grandfather? He's a cardiac specialist. I'm there to have a heart. Didn't matter if I could, because he said you can walk, because he's seen these videos of me playing the guitar on YouTube. Well, I've explained about those, but I can't walk. I can stand. I have leg braces. I mean, I'm in the commode because they didn't provide me with a wheelchair. And what I do is, until my arm muscles gave out, I had to use my crutches as skis to get there. You know? They give you a commode and they don't give you any care to empty it or anything like that. The last time they came round was in April, my occupational therapist came round. And I said, you've done nothing. She said, well, we got you a commode today. I said, who empties it? She said, well, how are you emptying it? I'm not going to be graphic, she might. So I told her. She said, well, you can't do that. It's not fair on the bin men. I said, well, you expect? She said, well, I mean, there are 3 of them. She said, well, you could flush it down the toilet. Well, if I could get to the frickin' toilet, why would I need a commode in the first place, you goddamn lunatic? Jesus. And you're on 40 grand a year? Jeez, you know. When the ambulance drivers came, by the way, this incident where I'd been attacked, I was so ill they refused to take me home, and all they did was wheel me around to A&E. And the only way they would take me home was if I could get from the hospital wheelchair into the ambulance wheelchair. And obviously I couldn't. And so they turned the other way, while 2 members of the general public held me under the arms from one wheelchair to another, and then they drove me home. And I'm not criticising those ambulance drivers, because they were wonderful, because I didn't want to spend another day in your hospital, because what was the point, you know? I discharged myself the week before, because when the end is in sight, as I pointed out to them, well, I need to sell everything I own to raise money for my babies. I can't do it from a hospital bed. You've done nothing for 2 years, and now you want me to stay in hospital and die there, you know. So you say, well, we cared for him right to the end, you know. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning this is because that second attack, every syllable of the whole 5 hours is on there, an audio recording, plus the second attack is covered on the hospital CCTV. So you've got a hospital worker, so an audio recording of him verbally insulting someone. You can hear him manhandling me, you can hear me saying, get your hands off me, get your hands off me. This is how I know that 6 minutes 22 seconds after he wheeled me out, he comes and starts on me again in the waiting room, because that's the gap. I just left the thing running. It's a 64 gigabyte. It just goes on forever and ever. Now this has done something now, and I can't think. I don't know what it's done here. It can go away. Right, there we are. So I waited till the Oval Hospital letter came through about that appointment. It says, Mr. Murphy said that he's no longer blacking out. He doesn't want any further treatment. No mention of the attacks. Just complete lies. I never said anything of the sort. It's all on record. All I said was, I want to go out of here now, and you save me in another hospital. So, you know, he goes home, he blacks out, cracks his head, dies. We're in the clear. That's how the NHS work. A little tip for you. If you're in hospital and you're ill, and the doctors, and they're very benevolent, they come and they offer you, give you a drink, right? And a sandwich. Dr. Mohammed, you vermin. Don't think I didn't know your game, Sonny. Gave me a cup of tea. And I want a cup of tea. No, you have a cup of tea, Mr. Murphy, you have a cup of tea. This is the week when I was in. And of course it's sliding down, I dropped it, and a member of the public comes and holds it up. And then another nurse walked by and she said, oh, let me help you. No, you're not helping. Because if you can get one sip of fluid, and if you can take one tiny bit of fluid down, they kick you out of the hospital. And here's the thing, because they know, I'm supposed to have daycare here. Funding was allocated for me on the 15th of February 2022. It's now the 22nd of December 2022, and I've had not one visit. They're supposed to be here to help me do my physio to slow. You see, I can do little bits on my own, but of course I black out. And you can't do it because you have to take the chance of, okay, slow lingering death as the muscles waste away, or instant death if I try and stumble around without the walking frame, fall, crack the hand. Look at that. You know, concrete mantelpiece there, table there, my bed there. Don't look in that blue bucket, whatever you do. You don't want to see what's in there. So I got the letter down. So since I had an audio recording of it, and since I had already checked when I was in the waiting room, and since 7 members of the great British public had seen what had happened, so I wrote, I hope I'm showing this in the right place. So you see, I wrote to them saying, A, your letter is a bunch of lies. And this other woman as well had backed this guy up. You know, she had to have backed him up because she's been quoted in the letter. And I've got a video recording. You've got CCTV recording, and I've got an audio recording of the whole incident. So I sent that to Yeovil Hospital, on the 14th of November, it's either the 14th or the 16th, my eyes aren't working, behaviour to complaints at ydh nhs.co.uk, behaviour of Yeovil District personnel. Because not just me, if you've got no boundaries you would do that, you're not going to stop on the next time. That's inherent. He's an inherent abuser. But because they back each other up, they know they can do what they like. As corrupt as the Met. As corrupt as the Met in the 80s. Well, not that the Met has got any better now. And, but I copied this. Don't think I'm not taking that. I copied that email to Stephen Barclay, the Minister for Health. No response from him either. So Stephen Barclay, Minister for Health, you're informed that Yeovil Hospital staff are attacking people in wheelchairs with scissors, manhandling them, verbally abusing them, lying and falsifying their reports, and you know that video and audio recording of the entire thing exists in the latter case, the second part exists in the former case, i.e. on CCTV, plus there were members of the public witnessing it, and you don't think that's worthwhile. So whatever's going on in the strike negotiations, I think you're pretty garbage at your job. Because even if you don't check your own emails, I very much doubt you do. Of course, you Tories do have form, of course, because I notified Marcus Fish, the Yeovil MP, a year ago what was going on at Yeovil Hospital. And what did you say, Marcus Fish? You're not my constituent. No, I don't live in your constituency, but your goddamn Yeovil Hospital was in your constituency. We had a word for you when I was in the army, Fish. So that's these wonderful nurses and doctors. Ah, great, huh? Oh, that's what I was saying. And they don't want you to have it, because if you can get any food or drink in, they say, okay, you can go home. Never mind me in my condition. Think of the 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, 80-year-old spinsters. I've got no friends or family. I mean, I'm not the only person in that class. And that's it. Oh, you can, but they don't say, are you able to make that food for yourself? Are you able to take your medications? They know I've had swallowing difficulties for 2 years. They know that my GP isn't prescribing me my heart medicine, because I went above his head and had to write the Yeovil cardiology and say, look, my GP is refusing to issue my mega dose of atorvastatin to stop my heart. Proximal, severe blockage of the RH proximal artery, I believe. It says on my medical reports about it. I just wanted to get this out. Anyway, oh, there's another email there. A wonderful dietitian who's been the jewel in the NHS. See, here's the thing about the NHS. You've got probably 15-20% amazing workers. Then you have maybe 40% just good, do their job and everything. And then you have got 15%, well, maybe 20% who just aren't up to the job. And then you've got 10% that just scum, you know. They're a danger. I mean, this number of times, and even the nurses themselves, the doctors were just going round, they needed the bed, so they would just throw people out. The one that I remember is they were aghast, all three of the nurses on ambulatory care. They were talking about a young girl in Yeovil, she'd taken 100 tablets in a suicide attempt, and she was in, and they were monitoring her liver. And she said, they've discharged her. What? Why did she discharge her? Well, they needed the bed. Yes, but she said, they've given her, and they've given her some, and I think they called it crank. So they'd sent her home with this thing, presumably to counteract the effects of the overdose, I know not. And they were saying, well, she'll be back in 2 days. She said, gosh, you'll know that when it goes through her system. And that's it, they come back in, so you clear them out, you make the bed, but you clog your own system up, because 2 days later this person comes back again. That means it's another ambulance. So someone lying on the bloody back somewhere, because this girl's had to have an ambulance come in. And then she's clogging, then you've got to do the stats on her, the OBS, then you've got to check the notes. Okay, so for the sake of finding someone a bed just anywhere at all, you could put her in a broom closet, she would not have minded. You've created 4 days' work. And you wonder why the waiting lists are there. You know, it's quite simple, really, you know. No other business would survive with the level of failure the NHS does. And anyway, I hung on to the day. It was my Christmas to see my children despite insurmountable obstacles. And I don't want to go into it. My children are 8 and 10. I really didn't want to see them. The plan was, to be honest, I was going to check out of the Heartbreak Hotel in the middle of November because I didn't want to die over Christmas. And really, I've got to be honest, the pain is so bad because I've got no morphine or anything like that, and the level of paracetamols and stuff that one would need to take to stop all the pain would take you out in any case. You know, you damage your liver or anything, so you have to live with the pain, you know. And I didn't want the rest of their lives to be totally associated with this. Anyway, it got to the beginning of December, and I thought, well, if I just try and do nothing, don't eat, don't drink, because my intestines no longer work, you see. Just sip water and milk, I might make it. And I bought train tickets. The children needed to see me. I'm not going to go into the details on it, but they really needed to be out of there. They needed to come down here and just be with me. And the train was all booked. And at 8 o'clock last night, and it was all planned. Disability taxi from here to the station, disability carriage to Waterloo. A relative of theirs puts them, brings them through, puts them on the train, because the train just comes straight back. Disability taxi, put me in a wheelchair and bring me home. And the children in the front seat. And so sorry, I'm giving out here rapidly. My son called me last night. You can check the videos. You can see the relationship I have with my son. And I think on a couple of them he's saying, oh, well, I live forced to come and see you, Daddy. And I'm saying, just don't boot your hopes up, mate. But at 8 o'clock last night they were still selling tickets for the 0620 train this morning. And I woke up this morning at 4 o'clock this morning. It was cancelled. Are you happy with yourself, Mick Lynch? Are you happy with yourself, Mick Lynch?